Hey there, Fraser Edwards here. In this video, I'm going to get nerdy about guitar solo composition as I look at my thought process and note choice behind my guitar solo in METALITE's Black Horse Rider from their new album, Heroes in Time. So let's check it out. So yeah, that was a pretty cool solo, though looking back on it, one thing that annoys me is that the song's called Black Horse Rider, and I never did that whammy bar horsey thing, you know, the one that's like... or whatever, but like obviously I should have done that. I mean, the song is called Black Horse Rider, but yeah, let's have a look at the solo that I did write, and I'll go through the thought process behind how it's structured and why I chose the notes that I chose, and kind of the craft of writing a power metal solo that's still cool in 2017, going on 2018, even though I wrote it in 2016. But yeah, things have moved on, styles have changed, you can't really get away with just doing pentatonic blues licks and neoclassical runs in metal anymore. You kind of have to go a bit beyond that to impress people these days, it seems. So obviously what kind of solo you write is dictated massively by what you're soloing over. And for the different types of sections, I might do a different type of solo. So my favorite type of section to solo over is the typical chorus solo. I find they have longer held chords, maybe big lush orchestration, a simpler and more dependable drum beat, maybe boom, cha, boom, cha. There's usually just a lot more energy and the section is just more glorious. And because of all that, I can get a lot more melodious and lyrical in my solos, which I think makes it easier to write and get inspired for. And they usually end up being my most memorable solos when they're like this. You're not always going to be doing lyrical solos over majestic chorus sections, and verses and verse solos have an important function in songs. It's like many things in life, songs have emotional highs and lows. And building up hype and tension in the verses and pre-chorus before the payoff in the chorus, and then repeating the whole process again is usually the norm in a lot of music, unless it's through composed or something. But just because you don't have an epic section to solo over doesn't mean your solo has to sound like a prelim to the main event. It's like when you watch a UFC show and Conor McGregor is like in the main event and he's getting paid like 30 million, and then the guy in the opening fight is getting paid like minimum wage probably. Obviously you don't want to be that guy, but he's still got a role to play in the overall context. So yeah, soloing over this kind of section makes it a bit harder to steal the show, but it's power metal, so we're gonna try anyway. So let's have a look at how the solo starts. So it starts off kind of fast and full on, and it's like common convention. A lot of people like to start their solos off simple and to build to something more complex. And fair enough, I do that sometimes, but I think it's kind of cool to start in the middle of the action. That's kind of a narrative storytelling trick that I learned. But yeah, it works great in guitar solos. So the solo starts off with a descending scale that goes into a pedal note motif. So and then the same again further up. Well, one of the criticisms that shredders get these days is that it just sounds like you're playing scales. Like a gal said, it just sounds like he's playing scales. Like, kind of like how opera singers just sound like they're singing vowels. So I try to break up scales when they go on too long, and this descending scale I broke up with a pedal note kind of thing. So you're not doing a scale for too long and no one can criticize you for that. So let's see what comes next. Okay, so that's kind of like a melody, almost like the first proper melody of the song of the solo so far, actually. It's not that amazing, but there's a harmony playing with it, and that kind of tricks you into thinking it's more interesting than it actually is. I like to harmonize stuff, so yeah, it is what it is. Okay, so the next bit. Then I do a descending arpeggio. And the thing with arpeggios is it's kind of like I said about the scales. Because your average listener doesn't know the difference between a scale and an arpeggio, they say, oh, you're just playing scales. So again, I've broken that up with a continued pedal note thing. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I like to play arpeggios. They're kind of easy. You can do it without too much warming up. Your left and right hand don't have to be in that syncopated. Although these days it doesn't really fly just to do major and minor arpeggios. It's quite transparent when you do that too much. So a cool thing to do is minor and major 7 arpeggios. So this section coming up starts off with a B minor 7 arpeggio. And a B minor 7 arpeggio is basically a B minor pentatonic without the 4th. So when you play through it really fast, it kind of sounds like you're shredding through a pentatonic almost. And I like to do that, but here it plays a B minor 7 fragment, and then it switches to an E minor 7 fragment, and then another B minor 7 fragment further down. And that's all played over a D chord, and it sounds kind of like fusion or jazzy. This note choice, it's not really my area of expertise, but I thought it sounded kind of cool and exotic, and I harmonized it as well. So let's have a look at that. Cool. That's just like a bar that I did a massive explanation about, but it's important, maybe. So yeah, for this kind of solo, I usually go further towards the shred type of solo. Not complete shred, but if there's a ratio, maybe like 70-30. Whereas a chorus solo might be the other way around, like 70% melodies and 30% shred. There's an art to injecting melody into fast shred sections. Like if you listen to guys like Jeff Loomis, you can hear he's playing constant 16th notes, but you still kind of hear a melody coming through. And that's what I aim for, and also keeping things rhythmically interesting with a bit of variation can make up for the lack of melody. And yeah, so you can switch up 16ths, triplets, triplet 16th, groups of 5, 7, 9, or anything else you can think of to make it a bit more rhythmically diverse. So I should probably mention that I generally like to write all my songs in Guitar Pro, like 99% of the time. And this is very important for me when it comes to solos, because, well, for a start, obviously there's no way I'd remember all of these solos. But it's also great when it comes to more technical parts, because I can come up with crazy stuff that I know isn't impossible to play. Like I can clearly picture the hand movements, but at the same time I get to challenge myself by writing harder and faster parts. Of course, if I get stuck writing, or if I'm feeling particularly inspired, I'll stick the backing track on a loop and I'll just improvise for 50 or 100 takes, and usually after that I'll have a pretty good solo composed just from improvising a lot. There's many different approaches you can use when it comes to creativity in general. Sometimes I just type random fret numbers into Guitar Pro and it at least gives me an idea or a direction to go in. But yeah, when it comes to Guitar Pro or music software in general and using it to help you compose, you might be held back if you don't have a good grasp of music theory. Still though, I wouldn't let that hold you back at all. I know plenty of people who aren't that good at music theory and they love Guitar Pro and do great work in it. But I find it useful, a good grasp of music theory is useful to kind of break out of creative paralysis. So for example, if I don't have any inspiration for what to play over a certain chord, I can at least say, well, it's an E minor chord, so I'll start off by creating a bit of tension with the 9th, and I can play an E minor 7 arpeggio over it because I know that sounds good all the time. And then, you know, when it goes to the D, I can play that 9th again because it's now a third of whatever. Basically, I kind of use music theory as almost like a cheat, or like a sometimes a good like template starting place. Like it's like a map in my brain. I kind of, yeah, it helps, basically. So then the rhythm does kind of a triplet thing, so I kind of copy that. Just copy that in the lead, and then it comes into the second half of the solo, where I said it gets more melodic. So I'm going... So there's a lot of kind of longer held notes in this section, so it's important to have a strong and wide vibrato because the previous section was so fast and frantic, and we want to keep the energy levels up in this section too. So I tried to do the vibrato for this kind of stuff on the G string where possible, just because I feel it sounds better. I've been doing it for years that way, kind of preferring that string, and I recently discovered that jazz guys like Freddie Green play everything on the third and fourth strings because of the way guitars are constructed. There's more tension on those strings, so it's going to have more impact and punch. So after that, it basically plays a kind of descending thing and then it slides out, and that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys found this interesting. I'm gonna start doing a lot more guitar related videos from now on, so if there's any other solos you want me to dissect from any of my bands, Ascension, Sharky Sharky, my solo project, or any other METALITE solo, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video of it. So remember to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this, and to share it with anyone you know who might find it interesting. Cheers!